But Layman, do you acknowledge the fact that right-wing speaker, let's say white nationalists, face free speech problems that are different from Jeff Holiday and his Black Dildo YouTube series?
Right, without passing any judgment on Jeff, I would assume so, yes.
Yeah, so I mean what I mean by that is that free speech is a problem for many people, but it's a different problem. And free speech can be a problem for people who get strawmanned, for people who get misrepresented, for people who get falsely accused of stuff, for people who get censored by government in some countries, for people who are experiencing issues within religious
Um, um,
families.
I'm sorry. Just want to ask the audience: is it lagging for all of you, or is it just for me? Just let
I
me
think
know. Okay.
Andy, you are lagging particularly because when the other guys are speaking, they don't lag as much as you.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
And now we're losing you.
I think yeah, the fucking thing and plug it back in. I don't know. It does that sometimes. My bad. But all right, the audience is fine then. The audience is fine. That's cool. I'll try and keep up. That's cool. Sorry. Go ahead.
All right. So where was I? Oh yeah. So the people of different ideologies face different problem with respect to free speech. And my view is, if you make a conference on free speech, you should have a large enough sample to understand the diversity of problems that are faced in modern society concerning free speech.
Yeah. I'll actually stay on this just because it probably will lag a lot less. Yeah, I agree with JF on that because the thing is, when people are promoting free speech constantly, it, like I understand that there's the fringe groups, right? Sticks what you're saying, and then there is, of course, the possibility of safety concern for absolutely everyone. But in my opinion, what it should have been, like Kilroy, what it should have been called is not a free speech conference. It should have just been a conference, a video conference, just like VidCon. So, because I think it misrepresented what it was originally in the first place. And I agree though with you, Sticks, on the dangers of, because I don't Richard Spencer, he wanted to swing by, and baseball denied that because security for Richard Spencer would have been crazy expensive. So yeah, we are running into the problem where we want the free speech, but we also want safety for everyone.
Yeah, it becomes such a paradox that it's impossible to solve, and it's impossible to please everyone. I just think that if it had been better organized, ultimately, if it had been more ironclad, who was going to show up, what are the arrangements for everything, I think it would have gone off a lot better, and that would have been at a minimum. But I don't chalk necessarily all of that up to malice. And by the way, this is a good time to mention this. Congratulations, I guess, to Richard Spencer for being a finalist for Texan of the Year, because that was big in the Dallas Observer earlier, and they were like having a nervous breakdown over it, actually. It was funny.
Wait, there's actually legit?
It's actually legit. He's apparently a finalist based on, I guess, voting or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Spencer, you magnificent bastard.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll be
no.
reporting on that tomorrow because it's insane. The fallout from that is going to be, I mean, you don't have to be on the alt-right to appreciate how many people will be melting down, I guess, over that.
Yo, that's intense. Actually, it's really funny. I got a lot of emails from people who want to be on the show in the future from like teachers, academics, please respond, robotic engineers, Christians who want to do debates with atheists. JF, I'll go over the list with a lot of these people. A lot of the old panelists want to be on the show and have their panels on this show. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I would really like if people on the left, if you're an academic or you're anyone in politics who wants to be on the show, I'd really appreciate if you threw me an email, andywarski@gmail. And the reason I bring this up and reason I bring up, people being upset with me in my, skeptic TM camp or whatever, is Richard Spencer contacted me about being on the show next week. And so he wants to be on the show. And I told him I'm going to try and look for someone, who's really against what he believes. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And we'll try and moderate it as best as possible. And if people were mad at me before, like, I wonder what people are going to be saying now.
They'll say that you're the grand gatekeeper of all Nazism, and they'll totally ignore whoever you have on that opposes his ideas. By the way, that's what'll happen. Right Wing Watch will be putting you on the next Holt article, probably.
I've been facing this problem of finding people on the left to talk to. I'm trying soy milk to attract them right now. I still don't have the trick to get them.
I actually have some insight into this, mostly from private conversations. I happen to have say, somewhat okayish, or at least for now, non-hostile connection to several quote-unquote leftist YouTubers. And there is this weird sort of feeling that seems to be, to a certain degree, mutual, that if people were to go to, for example, a leftist YouTuber were to go on stream with, say, a skeptic, that it wouldn't really be a constructive discussion, but it would quickly devolve into essentially meaningless blood sports, because not two people would be arguing against each other, but two straw men would be arguing against each other. So it's not necessarily fear or anything, but it's this sort of, there's nothing to gain from this attitude that seems to be, at least a certain degree, prevalent in the leftist YouTube sphere.
So, Dr. Lehman, during the whole crowd thing, the whole interaction between me and crowd for the last 4 months, were you taking sides? Were you looking at this? I don't know if you've expressed any position on the matter yet.
I only really looked into it in the very late stages. The problem is that this is somewhat of a personal issue for me. All I can say is that I've had to I had to cut a few ties. I had to rethink my approach to social media. I'm unhappy with how the whole thing how the whole thing went. Not only with what quote unquote crowd did, but also with certain elements of the backlash. Because right now the entire thing is being painted as like literally the worst thing that's ever happened on the internet, and I think that is quite the overstatement. And there's a lot of like heat and hatred surrounding it. And I think it may be a bit overplayed. Now, I'm not saying it's all completely harmless. I'm saying that the hate and the vitriol surrounding it may be a bit overplayed.
And Styx, did you have a take when you saw those events happen and when you saw the fall of Kraut and T?
Well, when I saw the fact that there appeared to be a doxing server on 4chan, I was like, whoa, what's this? But again, like with Kilroy, I don't like to delve into that side of stuff that involves people attacking each other, because I'm just a content creator, so I don't really have much of an opinion. But from Run I can get,
So I get the red.
It seems like Kraut done goofed, and I think that's pretty much common knowledge. But I mean, my involvement wouldn't really help one way or the other, I guess.
But as far as the main scientific question went, what is your position on race?
My position on race, well, it exists. I mean, that was considered common sense back when I was a kid. So I don't consider, I mean, some people seem to think it's racist to suggest that there is such a thing. I'm not understanding it. It's like the concept of like gentrification. If you disagree with that, you're racist. If you disagree that if whites take part in other cultures, they're appropriating. If whites don't take part in other cultures, they're colorblind. What the hell am I supposed to do? I'm not going to sit here feeling sorry for other people and feeling bad about myself for things that happened in some cases a century and a half ago for my whole life. It's just not going to happen. If other people want to live their lives that way, that's fine. It doesn't involve me. I don't get into that drama either, because it's basically just a bunch of whiners rambling about a bunch of postmodern bullshit that will be forgotten. In 50 years, I have every reason to believe that everything that they're saying is true will no longer be considered true, especially since it's so divisive. It's so obviously unscientific. It's sort of like the idea of ignoring the XY chromosomes. I'm not really interested in perusing their so-called science, no.
Now, as far as identity goes, removing all possibilities of violence, of course, I'm sure you are against violence against races, but the possibility of identitarianism, of people freely getting together, identifying based on race with no violence and with no aggression of other races, is that something you would reject morally?
No, people should have freedom of association. I think any honest libertarian thinks that if a person wants to be identitarian and keep to their own race for whatever reason, they should be able to do so. Just like if they want to be diverse and they want to be with people who aren't of their race, go ahead. It's not my decision what other people do. So I don't see it really as a moral thing. It's just sort of a thing of hey, if people have liberty, yeah, they should have the right to do that. Absolutely.
Actually, actually, it's oh yeah, and by the way, just two things. Yeah, I'll read super chats in a second. There's some questions out there, and also V, he DM'd me and he says he disagrees with JF completely. Jeff, would you be interested in maybe talking to V?
I mean, I don't want to steal Sticks, who is our main guest,
Of
and
course.
who the audience wants to hear about, instead of this gypsy guy who no one wants to hear. But if you decide as a host that he should come, bring him.
I mean, here's what we'll do. We'll bring V in, and maybe in about 10 minutes, in between certain things we're talking about, and we'll keep him on for about 10 minutes, and then we'll move on from there. Like,
All right.
all right.
And if you don't like him, just randomly kick him off for no reason.
Absolutely. So
Oh,
Sticks
okay,
is
well,
really
this
a
is right.
libertarian.
Very free speech of you. Wow, I can't believe this.
And there you have it. The SJWs start complaining that free speech needs special protection and safe spaces. Dr. Lehman,
We should democratize it. I think if we look at chat, like 99% of them, I don't think they want any V. I don't even know who this is, though. Who is this?
Okay, you know
you're
what?
talking about?
You know what I want to say to people who, because there's a lot of people who've gotten upset that I've brought certain people on to speak, and V is someone, is either you love him or you hate him, and I disagreed with V on a lot of shit. However, I like that. I enjoy, not like internet blood. Like, I mean, I like internet blood sports. It's always hilarious. However, I also enjoy the disagreements and the arguments. I don't think I'm not down for circle jerk streams. You know what I mean? That's the number one thing that I want to do. I mean, those are fine too, but when I have an open house type policy, it's nice to have people who disagree. I think it's cool and it's interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Though sometimes it gets out of control. Like, have you ever seen Lauren Southern's stream? With, the one that was like last month with Nick and Theron and all those guys. Oof, that went out of control. So we're trying to fix that. Like, we're trying to and that, yeah. So yeah, do you want me to bring V in here real quick, and then we'll move on from there after?
Let's do this.
Yeah.
All right.